Suspended cymbals and hand cymbals are the most common types of cymbals that are used in the concert band and orchestra. There are a number of other types of cymbals that we will touch upon later in the drum set portion of this course. The definition for what a cymbal is can be very loose. Really, any resonant metal disc could be considered a cymbal in some way. That being said, when a composer writes cymbal in a piece of music, there's usually a pretty specific sound that they would like to hear. I want to start by talking about the parts of the cymbal, and then I will get into performance techniques commonly utilized in a concert percussion setting. Most common cymbals have a very similar profile. There's a raised portion close to the center hole, and as you move outward, the cymbal slopes down. The raised center is called the bell. The bell is usually the thickest part of the cymbal and creates a high-pitched pingy sound when struck. Between the bell and the edge of the cymbal is what we call the bow. This is the part that is sloped and is where the cymbal is typically struck if played with a stick or mallet. Despite its simplicity, cymbals can be difficult to play well due to their cumbersome weight and complex timbre. Hand cymbals are also commonly referred to as crash cymbals. Hand cymbals are sold in pairs and are meant to be played by striking them together. Common sizes of hand cymbals range from 14 to 20 inches. For a school music program, I would recommend purchasing a pair of 16 or 18-inch cymbals for general use. Each cymbal is fitted with a strap so that the instrument can resonate while being held. The straps also allow a performer to control the cymbals as they are struck together. There are a few different types of straps, but the most common ones have split ends that can be tied together in a knot on the bottom side of the cymbal. There are many readily available resources detailing the process for tying cymbal straps, so I won't get into that here. Just be sure that the knots are tight and the straps aren't too damaged. A broken strap will eventually lead to a cymbal falling on the ground, which is never good. To pick up the cymbals, grasp the strap at the bell of the cymbal between your thumb and index finger. The middle portion of your index finger should be placed firmly against the bell. For heavier cymbals, I also place the middle portion of my middle finger against the bell for more support. Next, just curl the rest of the fingers around the strap. The grip should look similar to the snare drum grip. Taking one strap in each hand, lift the cymbals, placing them vertically about a foot apart from each other. As you will immediately realize, picking up a pair of hand cymbals is never comfortable at first. The cymbals are heavy and difficult to control, and the grip may feel pretty awkward as well. This is why I recommend that you always have a table or a cymbal cradle in front of you so that you can rest the cymbals when you are not playing. Just be sure to leave yourself enough time to pick them back up before your next note. Now, when teaching students to perform a crash, there's one thing I will always emphasize. Keep it simple. There are many fancy cymbal techniques that can produce great sounds. That's all well and good, but young students just need a simple way to achieve a consistent crash at a few different dynamics. I recommend having students hold the cymbals vertically and then move them horizontally into each other with a smooth stroke. Before I demonstrate this stroke, I want to make you aware of the two essential parts of a solid crash, the flam and the offset. Both the flam and the offset must occur at the precise moment that the cymbals touch each other. Flam refers back to the snare drum rudiment where two sounds occur, one just before the other. We want the same thing to happen here. One side of the cymbals should touch before the other. If the cymbals are struck flat against each other, the fullness of the crash sound will not be heard. To achieve the flam, push the bottom of the cymbals inward as the cymbals approach each other, forming a V. As the bottom of the cymbals touch first, follow through with the tops of the cymbals striking each other. When the cymbals come apart, they should form an A shape. Here it is in slow motion. Did you notice how I struck the bottoms first before the tops? This flam is the first essential part of a cymbal crash. Second is what I refer to as offset. This means that the cymbals should be slightly off-center when they come together. If all the edges are aligned, the cymbals can create an air pocket that will drastically reduce the quality of the crash and can even create enough suction to stick the cymbals together. Let me demonstrate the cymbal crash again in slow motion. Notice this time the offset of the cymbals coupled with the flam. Now, here are some full-speed mezzo forte crashes. One thing to keep in mind with loud crashes is that the more you force the cymbals together, the worse the crash will sound. Try not to execute louder crashes by just using more force. Just utilize more space between the cymbals and increase the flam and the offset. This will allow for crashes that have plenty of volume while still retaining the brilliance that's desired. Soft crashes require just the opposite solution, less space. Place the cymbals very close together, decrease the amount of offset, and only utilize a small flam. This will allow you to crash at very soft dynamics, again, without distorting the desired sound. Next up, we have the suspended cymbal. A suspended cymbal is usually between 16 and 20 inches in diameter and is held by a stand. Two types of stands can be used, a standard cymbal stand or a gooseneck stand. A cymbal on a gooseneck stand will resonate more than a cymbal on a standard cymbal stand because the gooseneck allows the cymbal to move much more freely. This movement isn't usually a problem unless quick rhythmic passages are required. In most situations, I recommend using a gooseneck as the sound will be noticeably more resonant. Suspended cymbals are most often utilized to support a crescendo into a significant structural moment within a piece. To achieve this, composers will write a roll with a crescendo under it, tied to a quarter note on the downbeat. To achieve this sound, the cymbals should be struck with soft yarn mallets. Some companies do make mallets specifically designed for suspended cymbals, but a soft marimba mallet with some weight is also a great choice for playing smooth, dark-sounding crescendos. The proper roll type for the suspended cymbal is an unmetered single-stroke roll. Be sure not to roll too quickly, as you may choke off the resonance of the cymbal. On the other hand, listen for individual strokes that stick out of the texture in a roll that's performed too slowly. Also, playing on the very edge of the cymbal can help smooth out the sound of the crescendo. Sometimes, instead of a crescendo, composers will instead ask for a single note with no roll. For this, simply strike the cymbal with either a yarn mallet or a stick. If using a stick, strike the shoulder of the stick on the edge of the cymbal. Lastly, with the suspended cymbal, let's talk about dampening. Dampening is common with cymbals because of their lengthy sustain. Be sure to dampen if the rest of the ensemble stops making sound. You don't want just a cymbal to be ringing over at the end of a piece. The simplest way to dampen is to grab the edge of a cymbal with a free hand. If the cymbal is shaking significantly, you could also place both hands on top of the instrument to avoid missing the edge as it flops up and down. I would like to talk about one more instrument today that's a close cousin of the cymbals, the tam-tam. First off, there are some name discrepancies with the tam-tam. Some composers write gong and some write tam-tam, but both typically mean this instrument that I have behind me. It is a large, flat-faced disc with a rounded edge. Some percussionists say gongs are pitched and tam-tams are not, while others say gongs have a raised center and tam-tams are flat. I wouldn't worry too much about the nomenclature. Use this instrument when you encounter either term, unless you have strong evidence that another instrument is to be used. For example, if a composer writes gongs in A and D, they clearly are intending that two different sized gongs are to be used, one that sounds at the pitch A and one at D. If you still aren't sure, find a reference recording that you like and see what they do. Naming discussion aside, to play the tam-tam, simply strike with a heavy mallet 1/3 of the way from the center to the edge of the instrument. Many tam-tams have a lathed portion that's just about the right distance from the edge. This is a good target if you have a tam-tam like the one I have here. A tam-tam mallet should have a heavy rubber core that is covered with felt or yarn. Do not use bass drum mallets on the tam-tam, as they usually have felt or wooden cores. When struck loudly, you will hear a clanging sound as the wooden core hits the metal of the tam-tam. Rubber cord tam-tam mallets will not have this harsh attack. Long crescendos are commonly called for from the tam-tam. For this technique, take 2 tam-tam mallets, one on each side of the instrument, and alternate. Even with a relatively slow roll speed, you will be able to achieve a smooth crescendo. Because of its size and resonance, the tam-tam almost always must be dampened at some point. Using just one hand will typically not stop the resonance quickly enough. The best option is to use your leg to cover as much surface area of the tam-tam as possible. The more space that is covered and the harder you press, the quicker the sound will decay. The techniques that I've detailed here are only the beginning. Get some crash cymbals and play some crashes. See what sounds you can make. Discover what works for you and doesn't. Most importantly, think through how you can teach these instruments to your students. It's one thing for you to be able to demonstrate, but it's another for you to be able to get a group of young students trained to create solid, consistent cymbal sounds. Good luck!